Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Our guest today, Nicole Baranowski. Nicole, thank you so much for coming on. Please just let us know where you're calling in from, first of all, and what you do for a living with HairStrong.
Yeah, I'm calling in from Toronto. It's in Canada, Ontario. And with HairStrong, I decided to make a business out of my own problems with my hair. And growing up playing sports with long hair, I constantly struggled keeping it out of my face. And because I was using items that were advertised as one size fits all, I thought that my hair was the problem, that it was too long, too thick, too whatever to fit into these bands. And then once I realized that other people also resonated with that same frustration, I decided to build a prototype of this adjustable band that you can cinch to the right size so that it doesn't slide out and actually keeps your hair up. So we help people keep their hair up throughout their active lifestyles.
That's amazing. And I mean, obviously this is a problem for you. So you wanted to make a product to solve your own issues, which is like obviously very common with a lot of entrepreneurs, right? That's amazing. I love all the stories that lead into, people creating these amazing products. And so what did you kind of find, along the way? What kind of went into, doing the product development for this? Obviously, I know most hair ties, my girlfriend tells me all the time, it's basically all you can really do is just double wrap and hope that it fits. But if you're between one of those doubling of the tightness, kind of screwed, right? So obviously, the problem is very apparent, something I hear often. But what kind of made you go with this specific design? And can you tell me a little bit about when went into the product development and how you ended up with the design you currently have?
Absolutely. So I just took a step back, and as soon as I realized that other people also resonated with this, I started connecting the dots that, okay, my hair is not actually the problem, it's the product. And so I looked at all the products on the market and I saw the similarities with them. It was mainly one size. Most of them relied on an elastic's ability to recoil. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't really anything that could be customized to different hair types and lengths. And even though there's 900 million people in the world with long hair, and essentially the market's saturated with these one size bands that are expected to fit everyone. And so then I went into some of the experiences that I've had in my own life with camping and having products like rain jackets and shoes that have adjustable toggles that allow you to tighten the bottom of the jacket or tighten your shoes together. And so I started questioning what would that look like in a hair product? And so I started going to different stores nearby so I could feel different materials, feel different types of elastic, feel different types of mechanisms that are used to adjust different things. And ultimately I landed on a solution that you can tighten on the go by using different components of different things that I've seen in my life, and then just putting that and applying it into a hairband that now you can put up with your hair, tighten, and you're good to go.
That's amazing. I love the point that you literally just went to stores and just found a bunch of different products to do material review for yourself. Because I think a lot of people that get into this entrepreneurial mindset and they hear stories of other people saying oh my God, I ordered 1,000 samples, all this stuff until I found the one. It's that could be very expensive. You don't always have to do that. There's stuff out there for you to kind of get a feel for some things, maybe a direction you want to go. So I love all the savvy angles that people have when they're doing the product development at the early stages. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's really cool. And so I guess I'm curious, obviously you sell through the website, right? Was that kind of the first channel you decided to sell through? Once you started getting some traction with this product, you sold direct to consumer through the website, and also kind of walk me up to where you kind of exist today with your different revenue channels, whether you're doing any wholesale or direct to consumer or Amazon. What does it kind of look like for you today? And where did you get your start as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So this started actually as a class project. And in my fourth year of university, we call it university here, not college.
Yeah.
So in my fourth year, I took this course because my undergrad was in kinesiology, but I took this course in entrepreneurship because I heard the prof was really amazing and the course would be great. I could get another mark to get into my master's program. It'd all be great. And throughout this course, I realized that there was this problem. It was really bothering me because I used to row competitively.
Oh, okay.
So training 20 to 30 hours a week rowing, constantly having hair as an issue. So this was top of mind for this class project. And so I designed a prototype, went to all these different stores, looked at all these different options. I did a business plan, presented it. And coincidentally, on the day that I presented, 2 business advisors from the entrepreneurship center at my school saw me pitch and they pushed me to start this business. So I had the right environment. I had the right support team, putting in confidence before I even had it myself, because I knew nothing about business. It was all right. Fitness and kinesiology. And that's the direction I saw my life in. I didn't really see this business aspect. And so when I was first starting out, it was whenever I ran into certain roadblocks. Like I had people to talk to, I had people to ask questions about. And what was mind blowing for me at the time was that none of this was super complicated. It was just doing the steps. And as soon as you got one step, so my first step was, okay, well, how do I make this? And so I looked at all the different things around me that are kind of similar to this idea that I want. The next step was, well, I don't know how to sew. How do I put this together? So then I'm like, okay, how do I find the people to sew this for me? And just constantly just trying to find the answers to these questions, push this forward. So when I first started, I was actually part of a incubator program with my school. So I started the idea in like November. And then from November to April, I was conceptualizing and like bringing things to light throughout my course load. And then in May, we started a summer 4-month-long incubator program. So that was my job, to work on my business for the summer. And at first, this was pre-COVID. So this was 2019. I was going to different markets around town and different gyms around town. And I got all of my friends and all my network to gauge what they thought of the idea. So that was like kind of first steps. And then I started selling in July, and I launched online through my Shopify store. And I remember the day of launch, I'm like, okay, everything's ready. I'm time to go. And then I see that I didn't set up any shipping settings. So 10 minutes before this launch, I'm like trying to figure out how to set up shipping. Because like how else am I supposed to get this product out to people? So like, I remember being so flustered. I'm like, I can't believe I forgot this shipping. So I just turned on automatic shipping, collecting shipping payments through the Canada Post. Like that's the shipper that we have. And I'm like, okay, whatever, this is good enough. Launched, and then just did like trade shows, small pop-ups, farmers markets, gym pop-ups. And then COVID hit. And then I had to really try and push this online because I couldn't go to gyms anymore or markets.
Right. Yeah. So obviously it's a common story I hear. I mean, people either like get started in online and just like obviously stick with through COVID, or a lot of people go like straight into retailers or doing like stores or selling into like local businesses and stuff, and had to obviously pivot to online. So you kind of doubled down on that since COVID. I mean, just kind of sticking with the more online model. And do you have any like retail partnerships now, or have you really just doubled down on doing online?
So the thing about D2C space, or like the online e-commerce space, is that you need about like $75 to $100 average order value for it to make economic sense to pay for customer acquisition costs, shipping, marketing, overhead, fixed costs, all of that.
Right.
My average order value is around $40 right now, which is way lower than that industry average. And so I don't have the economics to make sense to sell like 1 or 2 bands at a time. I need to sell volume. And so because I know that, I do push out wholesalers or bigger bulker orders to make up and to have the shipping spread across all the units instead of selling it one-offs, because it just won't scale that way unless I add more product lines or there's more SKUs to my product line. But I don't want to dissipate my focus from this one product that's doing really well. So I have my revenue channels is the online store. So people will come and see that and look at the shop. I also have some boutique retailers that carry the product. So specific dance studios, running stores, some hair salons actually have them as well. What I'm really trying to push this year is partnering with CrossFit gyms, because these do really well within the CrossFit space. Like it's a tool that can reliably hold your hair back throughout the high intensity interval training, throughout the functional fitness movements like burpees, skipping, double unders, like all that. And so that's what we're really trying to focus on and push this year. And even though technically anyone who has long hair that moves can benefit from having a product that's as reliable as this one, what's really working right now is CrossFit. And it's a challenge right now to say no to the other avenues and just dial in on what's really working.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. So you're definitely kind of more like B2B focused at this point, even though obviously you're going to continue to do your online selling when it makes sense. But yeah, I know it can be difficult with kind of like lower ticket items, at least like per unit, lower ticket items for sure. Is something that I hear a lot, especially in kind of like CPG food and drink space. A lot of like people that come on the podcast are in that space. And I mean, if you need a refrigerator or frozen, just like you could basically forget about it unless you're doing $150 an order, right? No, that's really interesting. So obviously CrossFit has become a big one for you. How do you kind of go about, getting in the door of this place? You literally like going in person and showing up. That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I just came back yesterday from a 3-day trip I took to Miami, and I just went into all these different gyms and introduced myself, introduced the brand, gave out samples. And essentially like the reason why it's working well is because they see it firsthand, whether they're a coach or owner, like members doing the workouts and their hair types failing them. So they can resonate with that problem. And then they have long hair themselves and also do CrossFit, they know exactly what it's like to have this happen. Like the problem is there, and that's why it's working there. So it's worth flying out, going and meeting all these people, creating the relationships, really fostering like a people to people connections. Like that's what I really value and what I stand on with like the values of this business as well. And so that's just kind of like how I've been trying to do it. They're not super scalable, but it is very valuable.
I'll tell you just from like perspective from other, people that are kind of selling in the same fashion, doing like B2B in person like this, and every kind of consumer packaged product like this, it's just kind of a slow burn, as I'm sure like you're learning, obviously you'd love to scale to the moon overnight, but there's a reason why many of the very successful like brands that I have come on in CPG or any other industries, I mean, they talk about, 6-7 years before they really got to like the scale they thought. And it's because they're doing things like this that are kind of necessary for, building a community and things like this to get the brand awareness out there in places where like you really think about that issue specifically, not just like you might be thinking about remembering a time where that was a problem and maybe you see it online, but it won't necessarily convert to a sale all the time. But when it's really in your face and it's a problem you're like literally dealing with at that time and it's in that place, I think it's really smart that you think about that way. And I'll just give you another perspective that like I was kind of surprised that I didn't think about a lot that somebody mentioned to me the other day. Somebody was selling, I believe they were date nuts, and he said his biggest markets that he sells to, they never expected to, but just happened to by the relationships that he had, was actually selling to college campuses and corporate campuses. I don't know if you've ever considered, doing things like that, more like the institutional side, maybe even like government. There's government contracts for things like that are out there too. So I guess question being, what's kind of the next vertical, I guess, like on your radar? Like I know you're doing CrossFit now. Do you have like an idea of like what's going to be next?
Yeah, the reason I started with fitness in general is because I was an athlete myself. So I resonate a lot with the mindset of every detail matters when you want to be the best, and consistency matters. And that is shared with CrossFitters who want to become their best. So every second during a workout matters towards your score. Every rep matters. And it's just the accumulation of everyday consistencies that lead you to be the best. And how this ties into that is that your hair, it's something you're putting up every single day. And if you're stopping your workout every single day because you don't have an adequate product, it does take away from the flow, focus, and enjoyment of what you're doing, and just adds something else on your mental load to deal with. And so because I was an athlete, and that's what I believe, and that's why I really truly believe in this product, because it helps add the effectiveness to anything that I'm really doing. And that's shared within CrossFit. And then the next kind of persona or the next move would be, okay, who else shares the same psychographic profile and these same problems on a day-to-day basis? And there's a few other sports that are actually emerging that overlap highly with CrossFit. One of them's High Rocks. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it is growing. It's very similar to, I actually don't know like what to attain it to, but CrossFitters also overlap with this new High Rocks category. And there's yearly competitions. So there's a great place where everyone's together and it's easy to access all of these athletes. There's now gyms like having High Rocks type training. And so that would be like the next overlap because the similar workout styles. And then the third kind of circle is obstacle course racers. So people who are actively training and are paying to participate in these sporting realms to become like one of the best versions of themselves and to have an outlet for their competitiveness, for their fitness, for taking care of themselves. And so that's kind of where I see this going right now. And then after that, aside from benefits of keeping your focus in training or workouts, is this huge safety feature for people who need their hair up for their jobs. So firefighters, police workers, healthcare, doctors, nurses, like they have their hair up all day. And when you need to focus on your job and what's in front of you, you can't really afford to have your hands in your hair. And so having a reliable tool that not only keeps your hair up for long periods of the day, but it reduces the damage that regular hair ties provide because of the soft wicking fabric on the outside. So I do have people saying they do have less headaches, they do have less hair damage because they do have to keep their hair up. Like it's not an option not to, but now they have something that actually is supportive for them and helps them hold their hair up.
Yeah, those are really interesting verticals, I think, and a little bit different in what I assume is when you work with these maybe CrossFit gyms or just like maybe gyms in general, is something they're buying and reselling, I would assume. Is that kind of what you're doing with them currently?
That is what I would want to move into, but for a lot of them, it's just another channel of like, how do we get these CrossFit gyms to be champions of this product for their members? Maybe not necessarily from a retail standpoint, because a lot of these gyms really focus on providing a fitness experience for their members, not necessarily pushing their retail products. If it works great and aligns great, like they have it there, but it's really like you want to provide the best experience for your members. And sometimes that comes from making sure they have the right tools in place to have that experience, such as something reliable to keep your hair up.
Okay. So it's actually kind of going to be similar to what I assume you're going to be doing with like, many firefighters or doctors or any of these other industries where they're going to be buying it on behalf of their either patrons or like employees of those places in order just to have for them from a safety perspective. That's really interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. From the outside looking in, my picture was like, it's in a gym, it's like the front desk or something has like a thing like kind of available. And I'm sure that like you've had that conversation that might be happening in most places. But you say most of the time you're really looking to have this like just available for patrons of the gyms or people in these like kind of industries you're looking to do next.
Well, you mentioned this beforehand where it's like, how do you do these things that can then scale and like reach this level of scale? And right now for us to just have this standalone product to sell itself, we don't have the packaging there yet and we don't have that set up. So what's working better for us is having champions of this product and having people that do trust and do rely on this product and then telling others about it, because that is what is working. And when someone has something that really works for them and they share that with others, that's what's working right now. And not to say that it's not an option to have this standalone be there and like hung up, but because it's one, at a premium price point, and two, it is a bit of a different user experience. Like changing customer behavior is so tricky to like deviate from what you're used to and what you regularly use to something else, even if it's better, is tricky. And so trying to implement and really rely on, I'm calling it like word of mouth, and having like these people that you look up to and go to for recommendations within your life has been working so far. And that's what we want to keep.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love that. Those ways like Nourish Organic, kind of just word of mouth marketing is, I think, understated many times. I mean, just because it's not something that you can like see directly, like, oh, like I went to 500 gyms and I got this like empirical statistic of like return on it. It's not always something that's quantifiable, but it's something that is definitely important. And for the exact reason you said, which is changing consumer behavior is very, very, very difficult. No matter how much better the product or the service is than what how their life currently exists, it's difficult. So I think that's actually a quite savvy angle that you're taking with this. And that's really awesome. I think it's a perspective, other people could definitely, I think, utilize more, especially at the onset, rather than just thinking about like very traditional channels and just thinking about the numbers and like revenue driving at any cost, just like on paper revenue driving at any cost. I think it's a really important perspective. Thanks for you're doing. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I guess one last question that I always love to ask everybody that comes on the podcast. Obviously, I know you got your start, doing an incubator program through your school, which is awesome. It's very cool. I guess like if you could go back to maybe not that part of it, once you kind of like went out on your own and started really like doing it like after school and all that stuff. If you go back to that time and give yourself any piece of advice, if you could start again, what do you think that piece of advice would be?
Have more confidence in yourself. I think there's a very big discrepancy between what you view success as and what like it takes to get there versus what it actually feels like when you are there. And I think with any problem, as you break it down into these doable steps, like you do move forward, and it can be very overwhelming to get from not knowing anything, not knowing even how to start to like this, let's say like this $100 million goal, for example, like very broad. And I think it's normal to be overwhelmed and stressed out about not knowing what to do. But I also think that's necessary because it's what's pushing you forward. And just because you don't know what to do right now doesn't mean you can't acquire the skills or get the help you need to figure out what to do. So having the confidence in yourself that you are willing to do what it takes and you do want to do the right things to get there is enough to get started.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I think that overwhelming feeling, I mean, as much as it's very taxing on yourself, like once you can kind of overcome that, I feel like it makes the next time you're maybe feeling a little overwhelmed or too much on your plate, like you remember that and you say like, well, I got through that last time. Like this is almost as bad as that, but not even quite, right? So this is kind of like, one of the big reasons I love doing this podcast is to just like, get perspectives on shared experiences, like exactly what you described. It's something I hear from almost every entrepreneur that I talk to. And I think it's really important for like other entrepreneurs as listeners to understand that this is a very shared experience. You're not on an island. Everybody feels this way, whether you're on your 10th year, your first year, or your first month. I think it's a very similar experience. Some people just experience that like, feeling for the first time at very different stages of their businesses. And so I really appreciate you sharing that. I think it's great advice. And anybody listening, if you are feeling this way, just keep going. I mean, everybody has felt this way, and, successful businesses, failed successful businesses, middle of the road, whatever it is. I mean, it comes across at some point. So that's really good advice. I appreciate you sharing that. And Nicole, I just want to say thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate your time and your insights. Your story is amazing. Incredibly successful young entrepreneur is always very illuminating and inspiring for people. So I really appreciate your time and all of your insights, and I wish you good luck and continued success, Nicole. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Matt. This has been great. And if anyone wants to follow along the journey, you can follow us at HairStrong Band on Instagram.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Nicole. I really appreciate it. And yeah, good luck with everything. We'll talk soon.